fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to robot facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we challenge conventional dairy wisdom and deliver the insights that matter most to progressive dairy professionals worldwide. Today, we're diving into one of the most uncomfortable truths hitting Canadian dairy farms right now. If you've invested over $200,000 per robot and you're still spending hours fetching cows to your million-dollar machines, this episode is for you. We're exposing the critical management failures that are costing dairy operations up to $160,000 annually in lost profit potential from identical robotic technology. While robot salesmen focus on hardware capabilities, University of Guelph research across nearly 200 Canadian robotic farms reveals a stark truth. Management practices, not technology, determine success. Today, we'll uncover the 4 critical factors separating top farms maintaining fetch rates below 5% from struggling operations exceeding 20%. This isn't about blaming your equipment. It's about recognizing that precision technology demands precision management. Let's get started.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine this scenario. Maybe it hits close to home for you. You've made probably one of the biggest investments on your dairy farm in years, maybe ever.
Huge investment.
We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars per robot for this cutting-edge robotic milking technology.
Yep, state of the art.
And you made this jump expecting big returns, right? Less labor, more milk, better efficiency all around.
That's the promise, absolutely.
But then months, maybe even a couple of years down the road, you find yourself doing the exact thing you hoped these robots would eliminate.
Don't say it.
Spending precious time every single day, out in the barn, fetching cows to these incredibly expensive machines.
Ugh, the fetch list. It's the bane of existence for some robotic farms.
And like to add insult to injury, you look over the fence and your neighbor who put in the exact same brand, the exact same model of robot,
identical tech,
seems to be just cruising along, effortlessly gliding, milking more milk per cow. And for them, fetch cows are, a rare exception, not this daily grind.
Yeah.
What on earth is going on? Why this massive difference in results when the technology is supposedly identical?
Well, that scenario you've just painted, it's not just common, it's really the central dilemma facing far too many dairy farmers who've adopted robotic milking.
Right.
And it's precisely let's call it the uncomfortable truth at the heart of what we're digging into today. We're drawing insights from the Bullvine article. It's pointedly titled, Optimizing Dairy Robotics, Management, Not Machines.
Okay, pretty direct title.
It is. And there's another piece too. Stop blaming your robots. The million-dollar management mistake's killing your dairy's profitability.
Million-dollar mistakes. Wow.
Yeah, these articles argue, quite forcefully actually, that the problem isn't some flaw in the robot technology itself. It's not the machine.
Okay, so it's not the hardware.
Nope. It's about fundamental failures in management. And the research they cite suggests these failures could be costing operations, get this, upwards of $160,600 annually.
Whoa. $160,000 plus a year. That's a massive amount of potential profit just vanishing.
It really is. Left on the table.
And it's especially relevant when you think about how fast robotic milking has spread. I mean, the Canadian Agriculture Census from 2021.
Yeah, the numbers are stark.
It showed over 2,000 farms had installed robots. That means more than 1 in 5 farms nationwide are using this tech now.
Exactly. And research from the University of Guelph really highlights just how rapid that shift has been. We're talking a quadrupling of adoption in just 5 years.
5 years, quadrupled. That's incredible growth.
It is. And Western Canada is actually leading the charge. Some regions out there are seeing like 25 to 50% of farms making the switch.
Okay, so this isn't some, niche thing anymore.
Yeah, at all.
It's a major transformation happening right across the dairy industry.
Right, fundamental shift.
Right. And with that kind of investment, you're looking at what, $200,000, $250,000, maybe even more per robot?
Easily. Sometimes more, depending on the setup.
And with so many farms using basically the same technology,
Yeah.
you'd logically expect, I don't know, a certain baseline performance, right? Maybe some small variations here and there.
That would be the logical assumption, yeah.
But these articles and the research they're based on, they point to this really stark divide. You've got farms that are absolutely thriving with robots hitting high production, low labor, hardly ever fetching cows.
The dream scenario.
And then you've got farms that are just surviving, maybe even struggling, putting in significant labor just to keep the robots busy, and the production numbers.
Well, they haven't lived up to the initial promise.
Yep. Stuck in neutral or worse.
And the kicker is, the articles argue this divide exists despite having identical hardware. Same robots, wildly different results.
Absolutely. And that's the core premise, the nut we really need to crack in this deep dive. Our mission here is to understand why this divide is so wide, why it's so persistent, based on the research presented in the bovine pieces.
Okay.
Because the conclusion they draw is crystal clear.
Yeah.
The difference between thriving and just surviving isn't the machine. It's the management.
It's the management wrapped around that machine. That's the game changer.
So let's really hammer this point home, this core problem. You've laid out significant capital, hundreds of thousands per robot. Goal: less labor, more milk.
Check.
But you're still out there day after day pushing cows towards the robot. The frustration builds. And maybe you start thinking,
Here it comes.
this robot just isn't living up to the hype. Maybe it's the brand. Maybe there's a glitch. Maybe the tech just isn't quite there yet.
And look, that's a very natural human reaction, right? Blame the tool when the result isn't what you expected or were sold.
Sure.
But the article, it pulls no punches on this. It basically says, look, the robot salesmen, they were pretty accurate about the technology itself. It is capable. It can do the job.
Okay.
What they perhaps didn't emphasize enough, or maybe what didn't fully sink in, is that while the technology is identical from farm A to farm B,
The management is not.
the management is absolutely not identical. And that, the article argues, is the critical, potentially million-dollar difference.
They point to research that actually proves this, right? It's not just opinion.
Exactly. Solid research. The University of Guelph has done extensive work here, visiting numerous robotic farms. They specifically documented cases,
Real-world example.
real-world examples, where farms using the exact same model of robot, installed around the same time, operating in pretty similar environments, showed vastly different levels of success. Profitability, efficiency, milk yield, all over the map.
And the common factor wasn't the robot.
Nope. The differentiating factor they identified wasn't the hardware's capability. It boiled down solely to how the farm was managed around that technology.
And the most compelling proof, the one that really sticks with you from the article, is that specific case study they mentioned. A farm that already had robots, but was clearly in that just surviving category.
Yeah, that one is incredibly powerful. It really illustrates the point. This farm, they were milking around 7,000 liters per cow annually with their existing robots. Not terrible, but not what they hoped for.
Okay, 7,000 liters.
Then they implemented proper robotic management protocols. And this is the absolute key point. It wasn't a technology upgrade. They didn't buy new robots. They didn't get fancier software updates necessarily.
They changed how they managed.
Exactly. They changed their management approach. And their annual milk yield per cow jumped to 9,000 liters.
Wait, from 7,000 to 9,000 liters.
Yep.
That's, carry the one, that's a staggering 28.5% increase in milk yield per cow.
28.5%.
Yeah.
Just from changing how they managed the existing robots and the herd around them.
Wow. That really demonstrates the immense untapped potential that's just sitting there within the technology itself.
It does. Potential that can only be unlocked through, well, more sophisticated management. The robot provides the opportunity, sure, but it's the management that provides the key to actually maximize that opportunity.
The article uses a great analogy here, one that every dairy farmer instantly gets.
Ah, the Holstein analogy. Yeah, it's a good one.
You wouldn't expect two groups of identical Holstein cows, same genetics, same health, same basic diet, to have completely different production records day in, day out.
No way.
Unless there were differences in how those groups were managed, right?
No, of course not. You'd immediately start looking at management differences. Stocking density, feed access, stall comfort, milking routine consistency, water availability.
Right. You'd never just shrug and blame the cow's genetics if everything else was equal.
Never. You'd know it was management.
Okay. So the article basically throws down the gauntlet and challenges you, the listener. Why then do producers sometimes accept this outcome with robots and blame the machine? Why say, oh, this robot isn't working for me, when your neighbor with the identical machine is thriving?
It's a really critical question for self-reflection, isn't it? If the hardware is a constant, the robot is the same machine doing the same basic function on two different farms, then the variable causing these drastically different outcomes must be something else.
Logic dictates.
Logic dictates its management. The research points overwhelmingly to management as that variable. So focusing on management isn't just one step. It's really the only logical step if you want to move from just surviving to actually thriving with robots.
It's about understanding the whole system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Understanding the robot not as this isolated piece of equipment, but as the central hub of a complex system involving cows, feed, housing, data, and then managing that entire system effectively, not just the machine itself.
Okay, let's pivot then. Let's talk about one of the most fundamental points the article makes. And this one really challenges decades of conventional dairy wisdom.
Yes, the voluntary milking concept.
Exactly. The idea of truly embracing voluntary milking. For generations, dairy farming has been built around these rigid, human-imposed milking schedules, usually twice a day, maybe 3 times, but always on the farmer's timetable, often precisely 12 hours apart.
And look, that human schedule makes perfect sense from a labor standpoint, from a parlor logistics perspective in those traditional systems. It works for the people. But as the article highlights, it completely ignores the natural behavior, the biological rhythms of the cow herself. Cows, left to their own devices or in systems where they control access, they don't operate on a strict 12-hour clock.
And the research cited here, especially Dr. Trevor DeVries' extensive work at the University of Guelph.
Yeah, Dr. DeVries has done a ton of work in this area.
It provides the hard data to back this up. It consistently shows that when cows are given the freedom to choose their milking times via robots, they naturally opt to be milked much more frequently than just twice a day.
That's right. The research consistently shows typical voluntary milking frequencies landing somewhere between 2.4 and 3.0 times per day.
2.4 to 3 times.
Yeah, when they have unrestricted access to the robot, and crucially, when they are properly motivated to visit. This isn't some, hypothetical ideal. This is observed natural behavior in a well-managed robotic environment.
And this is where we circle back to that really remarkable case study.
The 28.5% increase farm.
Exactly. The article explicitly links that farm's massive yield improvement going from 7,000 to 9,000 liters per cow annually with the same robots directly to allowing and actively encouraging this higher voluntary milking frequency.
Right. It wasn't just a minor tweak they made. It was a philosophical shift and a practical shift in management to let the cows dictate the schedule more. And it proved to be truly transformational, not just incremental improvement.
So it wasn't about forcing more milkings.
No, absolutely not. It was about creating an environment, the right feed, the right comfort, the right flow, where the cow felt comfortable and motivated to visit the robot based on her own physiological needs and, desires.
So for you, the listener, if you're operating or even just considering a robotic system, this raises a really critical question.
It does. Are you still mentally anchored to that traditional human-centric milking schedule, even subconsciously?
Are you maybe inadvertently limiting the potential of your very expensive robotic system by not fully embracing or perhaps even actively discouraging the cow's natural tendency for more frequent visits?
Are you leaving significant production capacity unrealized simply because your management philosophy hasn't fully shifted from that old parlor mindset to a truly robotic, cow-centric mindset?
That's really the heart of it, isn't it?
It is. And think about the biology behind it. Why might more frequent, smaller milkings work better? Well, it likely aligns better with a cow's digestive process, her nutrient partitioning. Instead of processing this huge slug of feed and then having her udder get really full holding milk for 12 hours, more frequent visits potentially allow for smaller, more consistent nutrient intake through the day and more regular removal of milk from the udder.
Which is less stressful physiologically.
Likely, yes. It could contribute to better rumen health, maybe more efficient conversion of feed energy into milk, and just less overall physiological stress. So allowing this voluntary frequency, which the robot facilitates but management must support, isn't just about robot efficiency metrics. It's about tapping into the cow's fundamental biological potential for higher, more consistent milk production.
Okay, now here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. And maybe, frankly, pretty uncomfortable for other producers to hear.
Uh-oh. Which part is this?
One of the absolute biggest culprits the article identifies for just killing robot efficiency in production. It isn't a robot issue at all. It's a cow health issue.
Ah, yes. Lameness.
Lameness. And they back this up with a number that is, well, it's shocking. Lame cows are 2.2 times more likely to require manual fetching to the robot than healthy cows.
2.2 times. That statistic alone should make anyone running robots just stop and think hard.
Right.
It immediately quantifies the cost of lameness, not just in lost milk or vet bills, but in terms of direct labor, your time, and robot inefficiency. That lame cow isn't just producing less, she is actively sabotaging the core principle of voluntary milking.
She's forcing you back into that labor-intensive task you bought the robot to avoid.
Exactly, fetching. And the University of Guelph research goes even deeper here, uncovering a really striking and frankly unexpected connection. The link between farmer mental health and the prevalence of cow lameness on these robotic farms.
Farmer mental health and cow lameness, how are those connected?
It's fascinating. The study compared the mental well-being of robotic farmers to those using conventional parlors. And interestingly, they found robotic farmers generally reported better mental health overall.
Okay, that's good news for robotics.
It is. But here's the twist. Within that group of robotic farmers, there was a very clear correlation. Farmers who reported better mental health had significantly fewer severely lame cows in their herds.
Wow, so it's not just about the cow's feet, it's about the farmer's head too.
It seems so. This really elevates lameness beyond just being an animal welfare issue or a productivity drag. It becomes a fundamental farm management crisis that directly impacts the well-being and effectiveness of the farmer.
Right.
And consequently, the performance of the entire operation. Poor cow health isn't just a cost center. It's a major source of stress that can directly undermine your ability to manage effectively.
That makes sense. If you're stressed, you might cut corners or miss things.
Exactly. The research suggested that higher levels of farmer stress and anxiety were associated with higher rates of severe lameness. It can become this really detrimental feedback loop.
A vicious cycle.
Totally. You have more lame cows. That means more fetching, more difficult animal care, more production losses. All of that increases your stress. Higher stress levels can then compromise your focus, your decision-making, your consistency in management.
Like maybe skipping hoof trimming or not managing bedding as well.
Precisely. Which could then lead to more lame cows. It's a cycle that just drags both cow health and human well-being down together.
Okay, so knowing this powerful, maybe even scary connection, what are the fixes? What does the research say we can actually do to break this cycle and tackle lameness effectively in a robotic system?
Well, the research points to several, let's call them non-negotiables. First up, bedding material.
Bedding. Seems basic, but important.
Hugely important. Studies, including those cited in the article, consistently show immediate and significant improvements in cow comfort, mobility, and even production, often around 1.5 kilograms more milk per cow per day.
1.5 kilos. Just from bedding.
Yeah. When farms utilize sand bedding compared to organic materials like sawdust or compost or mattresses, sand provides superior cushioning, better support, better traction. It reduces injury risk, improves lie-down time, all critical for hoof health.
Okay, sand bedding. That's a concrete takeaway. What else?
Second, proactive and, importantly, consistent monitoring. The research hammers home the critical importance of implementing weekly mobility scoring.
Weekly. Not monthly or quarterly.
Weekly. Using a standardized protocol so you're consistent. Why weekly? Because it allows for the early detection of mobility issues before they become obvious. Clinical lameness. Before the cow starts drastically changing her gait. Before she starts avoiding the robot because walking hurts.
So you catch it super early.
Exactly. Early detection means early intervention. And early intervention is much less costly, much less stressful for the cow, and has a much higher chance of a full recovery.
And this really ties back to that mindset shift you mentioned earlier, doesn't it?
It does.
The article challenges that old notion that, oh, well, lameness is just a normal part of dairy farming.
Right. The article states, based on the research, that while lameness might be common on poorly managed farms, it is absolutely not normal or acceptable in a well-managed system. Accepting it as normal means you've basically normalized a major performance constraint and a significant animal welfare issue.
You've accepted defeat before you start.
Pretty much. Treating lameness as an urgent crisis, something requiring zero tolerance and really proactive management that's key to success with robots, and the potential gain is immense. The key takeaways section in the article highlights the direct cost saving, recovering maybe $200, $300 per lame cow annually just from reduced vet bills and lost milk.
But the real gain, especially in a robotic system, goes beyond that direct cost, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's the impact on voluntary milking frequency and the overall system throughput. That's where the big win is.
Look out.
By reducing lameness, you remove one of the primary barriers preventing cows from voluntarily visiting the robot. Healthier, more comfortable cows are simply more willing and able to walk to the robot on their own schedule.
Which hits that 2.2 times fetching statistic directly.
Exactly. It increases robot utilization, it decreases your fetch time dramatically, and it frees up both the robot and your valuable labor time and, frankly, your mental energy. It really creates that positive feedback loop we talked about. Better cow health leads to less farmer stress, which gives you more time and energy for proactive management, leading to even better cow health and better system performance. It builds on itself.
Okay, moving on. Another critical piece, but one that the article suggests is often misunderstood in robotic systems.
Feed strategy.
Yes. Feed as motivation currency.
Exactly. The article frames it in terms of behavioral economics, basically saying feed is your primary motivation currency to get those voluntary robot visits. This is such a fundamental concept, and successful robotic farms really grasp this deeply. In a voluntary system, you have to incentivize the cow to choose to visit the robot. Now, comfort plays a role, let her fill plays a role, but the primary driver you can actively manipulate day to day is feed.
The treat in the robot.
Precisely. That palatable concentrate delivered in the robot becomes the reward, the currency that motivates her to make the trip. But it's not just about what feed you offer in the robot, it's also about how and when you manage feed out in the main pen.
And the research cited gives some fascinating insights here, like the University of Minnesota study. They looked at 36 robotic farms.
Yeah, and they found something really interesting about the variety of concentrate offered at the robot station itself.
Variety, as in more than one type of pellet.
Exactly. They found that farms offering more than one type of robot feed were associated with higher milk production.
Really? How much higher?
To get specific, the farms feeding 3 different types of robot concentrates averaged 85.8 pounds of milk per cow per day. The farms using only one type, they averaged 79.2 pounds.
Well, hold on. 85.8 versus 79.2. That's a 6.6 pound difference per cow per day, just from offering variety in the robot feed.
6.6 pounds. It's significant, right? The thinking is it might appeal to individual cow preferences. Some cows might just like one pellet better than another. Or maybe just having variety, a bit of novelty, keeps them more engaged with the robot station as a positive place to go.
Keeps things interesting for them.
Could be. Regardless of the exact behavioral mechanism, the data suggests variety pays off in terms of milk yield.
Okay, so that's feeding the robot. What about feed management out in the main pen, the PMR or TMR?
Also critically important, Dr. Trevor DeVries' research, again from Guelph, specifically looked at the mathematical precision of feed push-ups.
Feed push-ups. Seems simple enough.
It seems simple, but the impact is quantifiable. His quote cited in the article is very telling. The more often you get feed in front of cows, the more voluntary milkings we see.
Okay, more push-ups equals more robot visits. Makes sense. Did they quantify the milk yield impact too?
They did. And the specific stat is pretty compelling. Each additional 5 feed push-ups daily was shown to increase milk yield by 0.35 kilograms per cow.
0.5 kilos per cow for every 5 extra push-ups a day.
Yep. Now think about the implications. If you have, say, a 100 cow operation, increasing your push-ups by just 5 times a day, maybe going from 5 times to 10 times, or 10 to 15 means an extra 35 kilograms of milk per day for your herd.
35 kilos a day. Over a year, that's over 12,000 kilograms of additional milk.
It adds up fast. And the key takeaway section translates that into dollars, estimating it could mean an additional $8,000 to $10,000 in annual revenue for a 100 cow herd.
just from pushing up feed more often. That's incredible ROI on a simple management task.
It really is. It's a relatively low-tech management practice that has a significant measurable impact on the performance of your high-tech robotic system. It just ensures cows have continuous, easy access to the PMR or TMR.
Keeps them eating consistently.
Right. Encourages consistent intake throughout the full 24-hour cycle, which is what you want in a voluntary system.
And it's not just about solid feed, right? The article also mentioned research on using liquid feeds delivered through the robots.
Yes, that was interesting too. A study on a commercial farm in Michigan looked at incorporating molasses-based liquid products delivered right there at the robot station.
And what did they find?
They saw some dramatic improvements in cow behavior and performance. Milking frequency increased, went from about 2.7 times daily up to 3.0.
Okay, hitting that optimal range.
Exactly. They also saw a reduction in the number of fetch cows needed, and maybe most interestingly, a significant increase in rumination time.
How much did rumination increase?
By 30 minutes per cow per day.
30 minutes, that's a big jump. And rumination time is a key indicator of cow comfort and rumen health, isn't it?
Absolutely. More rumination generally means a healthier, more comfortable cow with a more stable, happy rumen environment. The liquid feed in the robot likely increased the overall attractiveness of the robot station.
Made it an even better reward.
Yeah, encouraged more visits. And it might have provided some readily available energy that helps support better rumen function overall.
So all of this research, the variety in the robot feed, the frequency of push-ups, potentially using liquid feeds, it seems to completely challenge that old assumption that just, delivering feed twice a day and maybe pushing it up occasionally is good enough.
It really does. The university research proves that more frequent access to feed, often facilitated by consistent push-ups, promotes those smaller, more frequent meals out in the main pen.
Which is better biologically for the cow.
Seems to be, yes. Better for rumen stability, supports more consistent energy availability for making milk, keeps the cows more active, and crucially for robots, it encourages those more even milking patterns and that higher voluntary frequency that the whole system is designed to optimize. Feed management, both in the robot and at the bunk, is truly the main lever you have for influencing cow behavior in a robotic system.
Okay, let's talk about something that is potentially the biggest untapped resource on any robotic dairy farm, but one that the article suggests often goes completely ignored.
Let me guess.
Data. The data, exactly. Penn State Extension research makes this point so vividly. They highlight that these robots measure almost 120 different variables per cow per day.
120 variables per cow per day. Just let that sink in.
Compare that to the handful of observations you might get in a conventional parlor setting. Maybe milk weighed, maybe a visual check.
It's not just an increase in data, it's an absolute explosion of information. And this data is incredibly powerful if you use it.
What kind of insights can it give you?
Things you could never really get before with that level of precision or timeliness, identifying potential health issues like mastitis or metabolic problems days, sometimes even up to 4 days before you see visible symptoms in the cow.
4 days early warning, that's huge.
Huge. Precisely detecting estrus cycles through activity monitoring. Flagging real-time changes in productivity, rumination patterns, eating times, body weight for individual cows.
And Matt Hand from Penn State, he helped categorize this potential flood of data into 5 sort of understandable buckets, right?
Yeah, that breakdown is helpful to wrap your head around it. You've got 1, systems management data. Things like total milkings, robot visits, fetch rates, box time per cow tells you how the robot itself is performing.
Okay, robot efficiency.
2, milk production data. Yield per milking, daily yield, components like fat and protein, milk flow rates, tells you who's producing what.
The output.
3, udder health and milk quality data, things like electrical conductivity in the milk and really mastitis indicator, milk temperature, maybe blood detection, your early warning system for udder issues.
Health alerts. Got it.
4, cow behavior and health data. This is crucial activity levels. Steps, movement, rumination time, eating time, maybe even body weight changes if you have scales. Tells you if a cow is healthy, comfortable, cycling properly.
Cow well-being indicators.
And 5, individual cow information. Basically her history, lactation number, days in milk, predicted calving dates, stuff like that. Lets you track trends for each specific animal over time.
Okay, so you have all these categories, all this potential insight. Systems, production, udder health, behavior, individual info.
A treasure trove.
But the problem, as the article bluntly states, is that for most farms, This incredible data goldmine is treated more like an information graveyard.
Ouch. But often true, the data gets collected, it gets stored somewhere on a computer, but it's not actively, consistently used to drive daily management decisions.
And that's just a massive missed opportunity, isn't it?
Absolutely massive. And again, University of Guelph research reinforces this. It clearly shows that farms that do implement integrated data approaches, meaning they look at the relationships between different variables, not just single numbers in isolation.
Like connecting low rumination with conductivity spikes.
Exactly. Those farms are significantly more effective at optimizing their whole operation. They make better, faster decisions about sorting cows that need attention, maybe adjusting feed groups, fine-tuning health protocols. They ultimately maximize the economic return on their big robotic investment because they're using the information it provides.
And this is where the conversation around technology starts to integrate even further, right?
Yeah.
Moving towards concepts like AI, artificial intelligence.
Right. AI isn't just some sci-fi concept anymore. It's actually starting to be applied right there in the barn, integrated with robotic systems on leading operations.
How does AI help? What can it do?
Well, AI algorithms can learn from the vast historical data collected from individual cows. So the AI can learn your cows. It can potentially adapt the robot's milking routine based on a specific cow's typical yield curve throughout her lactation or her unique udder shape or the precise location of her teats.
Optimizing the milking process for each individual cow.
Exactly. Optimizing attachment time, milking speed, maybe even pulsation settings, all tailored to her. And because the robots are already generating this huge amount of data, they become even smarter sources of information for more advanced analytics powered by AI.
So the AI doesn't just collect data, it processes it to give you actionable insights, not just raw numbers.
That's the goal. AI-powered analytics can identify subtle patterns in production or behavior across the whole herd that a human might miss. It can flag specific cows needing attention even earlier or with more confidence than simple threshold alerts. It could potentially help optimize the delivery of robot feed based on individual cow visits and production levels. It could even improve the accuracy of reproduction tracking and heat detection.
The article even looks a bit further down the road, right? Mentioning things like deeper AI integration, digital twins.
Yeah, the future possibilities are pretty exciting. Digital twins are essentially highly detailed virtual models of your farm or even individual cows. You could potentially use them to simulate the impact of changes like a new feed strategy or a barn modification before you actually implement them in the real world. And decision support systems will likely become even more sophisticated, using machine learning to provide increasingly targeted and effective management recommendations.
Okay, that future stuff sounds amazing. But the actionable insight from the key takeaways right now seems much more immediate and grounded.
Absolutely. It boils down to activate the data you already have.
Don't wait for futuristic AI. Use today's data today.
Exactly. Start using those 120 plus variables your robot is collecting right now. As the research clearly shows, just effectively using activity and rumination data can help you detect health problems up to 4 days before you'd see visible symptoms.
That shift from reactive to predictive.
That's the crux of it. It shifts your management from being reactive, finding a sick cow, treating her, dealing with the lost production after it happens, to being predictive. You can intervene earlier, often with less intensive or costly treatment. You can prevent significant production drops, and you can potentially avoid those really costly veterinary emergencies. It's about leveraging the information the system gives you to prevent problems before they become big problems.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means you are very likely sitting on a gold mine of data automatically collected by your robot every single day.
But you might not be digging for the gold, or maybe just scratching the surface.
It really raises that critical question again. How are you currently using the data dashboard or the reports your robot system provides daily? Are you just glancing at the total milkings and the total herd yield?
Or are you actively drilling down, looking at individual cow data, sorting lists for exceptions, cows with high conductivity, low activity drops in milk? Are you looking at trends in rumination, in fetch rates, in visit refusals?
Compare how you use data now to the potential outlined in this research.
That gap between your current usage and the potential, that's likely a significant opportunity for improved performance, better health, and ultimately higher profitability, just waiting to be tapped into.
Okay, so beyond the day-to-day management practices like feed and lameness, and beyond using the data, the physical environment the cows live in also plays a massive role in robotic success.
Huge role. The article spent some good time on facility design and how seemingly subtle layout choices can actually be costing you dearly in terms of robot performance and overall efficiency.
It's not just about dropping a robot into the old barn layout.
Definitely not. That's rarely optimal. The design of the facility, the stalls, the alleys, the crossovers, the access to feed and water, and especially how cows flow towards the robot,
Right.
it all fundamentally impacts cow behavior and, therefore, robot utilization.
And again, there's solid research backing this up. The University of Guelph looked across a really large sample size, 197 robotic milking dairy farms in Canada.
Yeah, that was a major study. It was specifically designed to examine how different housing factors, different cow traffic systems, and overall barn design decisions influence those key metrics we keep talking about: milk production, cow health, and robot efficiency.
What did they find?
They found pretty conclusively that strategic decisions made during the design phase, or maybe modifications implemented later about the layout, about the traffic flow system, and importantly, how these integrate with your management practices and your nutrition program. All of it has a direct and measurable impact on performance and profitability. Design matters. A lot.
They specifically detail the trade-offs between the two main cow traffic systems used with robots, free flow and guided systems.
Right, and the research clarifies something important. Neither system is inherently better across the board. Success really depends on how well that chosen system is designed and, crucially, how well it's managed.
Okay, let's break that down. Free flow first. What's the deal there?
So, in a free-flow system, cows basically have unrestricted access to everything: feed bunk, stalls, water, and the robot selection gates. They choose when to eat, when to rest, when to get milked. It's designed to encourage natural cow behavior.
Sounds good for the cow.
It often is. The research suggests free-flow systems typically lead to higher dry matter intake and more lying time, both generally positive indicators for cow comfort and health. Booker UTT, and this is a big but.
There's always a but.
Free flow absolutely requires a highly palatable robot concentrate feed and really excellent feed management out at the bunk. That motivation, that currency has to be strong enough to pull cows away from the feed or the stalls to voluntarily visit the robot.
So if your robot feed isn't super enticing, or maybe your feed push-ups are infrequent and the bunk gets empty,
then free flow likely means you'll have a lot of fetching to do. The cow needs a really strong incentive to leave that comfortable stall or the readily available feed bunk to make the trip to the robot.
Okay, makes sense. What about the alternative, guided systems, sometimes called milk first or feed first?
Right. Guided systems are designed to, guide the cow flow. They often use one-way gates to direct cows, maybe forcing them to pass through the robot area to get access to the main feed bunk, milk first, or requiring them to go through the robot to return to the resting stall area after eating, feed first.
The goal being to reduce fetching.
Exactly. The intention is to reduce fetch labor by making robot visits sort of part of the required pathway for accessing feed or rest. However, the research notes that if these guided systems aren't designed very carefully, meticulously,
They can cause problems.
They can potentially negatively impact cow comfort by restricting movement or forcing cows to stand waiting. They can disrupt natural feeding and resting patterns. And they can potentially increase social stress or competition if bottlenecks are created at gates or in waiting areas, especially for more timid cows.
So the choice between free flow and guided isn't just a simple, cow welfare versus labor efficiency decision.
No, it's much more nuanced than that. It's really about selecting and then carefully designing a system that aligns with and actively supports your specific management capabilities and your farm's overall philosophy.
You have to match the system to your management strengths.
Exactly. The university research really underscores this. A successful free flow system demands superior behavioral management, especially around feed motivation. A successful guided system demands superior facility design to minimize stress, eliminate bottlenecks, and avoid those negative impacts on cow behavior that could actually counteract the intended efficiency gains.
Because at the end of the day, the design influences everything.
Everything. How easily cows can get to feed and water without being hassled, how much comfortable lying time they actually get, how smoothly and calmly they can approach and enter the robot. All of this ultimately influences their willingness to visit voluntarily. Design flaws directly translate into operational friction.
Or fetching fewer visits, lower throughput.
You got it. It all comes back to hindering that voluntary flow.
Okay, let's try and tie some of this together and talk about the real cost here. What the article terms robotic failure. Although, as we've established, it's probably more accurately termed management failure within a robotic system.
Right. It's rarely the robot itself that has failed.
And the cost isn't just that initial purchase price, the $200,000 plus per robot.
No, that's just the entry ticket, really. The real cost, the one that bleeds profit day after day, is the ongoing compounding losses you incur because of suboptimal management practices.
And the article and the research it cites, they provide the evidence that these costs are substantial. That figure of potentially over $160,600 annually compared to top-performing farms, that's based on these management gaps.
Exactly. It's the accumulation of losses across several key areas we've discussed.
Right. Let's quickly recap those.
Okay, first, you've got the direct and indirect costs tied to lameness. Not just the vet bills and discarded milk, but the lost production from cows not feeling well, and critically, that significant increase in required fetching time and labor, which kills efficiency.
Check. Lameness costs.
Then there's the impact of suboptimal feed management, quantified by that University of Minnesota data showing potentially a 6.6-pound daily milk difference per cow between farms using varied robot feed versus just a single type. Plus, the impact of push-up frequency on yield, that's milk you're just not getting.
Okay, feed management costs.
Then there's that less obvious but really critical cost related to farmer mental health. The research links higher farmer stress levels to poorer cow health outcomes, like more severe lameness. That creates that negative feedback loop, hindering effective management and perpetuating the problems and the stress. It's a real cost to the business and the person.
Right, the human cost, which impacts the farm cost.
Absolutely. And fourth, the cost of ignoring that data goldmine. By not leveraging those 120-plus variables effectively, farms are missing crucial opportunities for early problem detection. They're losing potential milk production, and they're incurring higher costs because they're dealing with issues reactively instead of predictively.
Okay. Lameness, feed, farmer stress, data underutilization. Those are big ones. The article also subtly touched on one more potential hidden vulnerability, didn't it? Something related to all this connectivity.
Ah, yes. Cybersecurity. While the sources didn't detail specific cyber attacks on dairy farms, the Penn State research, by highlighting just how deeply reliant these robotic operations are on data systems, software, and network connectivity.
It implicitly raises the flag.
It does. Think about it. Your herd's entire performance history, health records, breeding data, the operational control algorithms for your robots, it's all tied into these digital systems. So ensuring you have robust data management practices, good network security, and reliable backup procedures is no longer optional. It's a non-negotiable aspect of managing a modern robotic farm simply to protect against data loss, system malfunctions, or potentially even malicious disruption. It's risk management.
Makes sense. Okay, so those are the ongoing costs of poor management. But the article also looked at the implementation phase itself, right? Identifying key factors for actually getting started successfully, again, drawing on that big University of Guelph study across nearly 200 farms.
Yes, and this research is really vital because it shows that successful implementation isn't just about scheduling the installers to show up and bolt the robot to the floor. It's a complex, multi-phase process that requires dedicated focus and planning before, during, and after the robot arrives.
Okay, what are those phases?
The research breaks it down nicely. Phase 1 is all about rigorous planning and assessment, and this happens before the robot even gets ordered, ideally.
Planning first.
Right. This involves a comprehensive evaluation of your existing facility. Does it suit robots? What renovations are needed? Based on those research-identified housing factors, stall dimensions, alley width, flooring, ventilation. It also means developing a detailed nutritional strategy up front. What will the robot concentrate be? How will the PMR or TMR be balanced?
Getting the feed plan right for the start.
Crucially, and maybe most importantly, this phase involves preparing your management system and your team, getting ready for data-driven decision-making, understanding cow behavior in a voluntary system, assigning responsibilities. You need to prepare the people and the protocols before the cows even see the robot.
So it's about planning the entire operational system, including the people and the cows, before the technology is physically present.
Exactly. You're building the operational framework first. Then comes phase 2, technology integration.
The actual installation.
Yes, this includes the physical robot installation, paying really close attention to how it integrates with your chosen traffic system free flow, or guided making sure gates swing correctly, flow is smooth. But just as important in this phase is intensive staff training.
Training the team.
Your whole team needs to understand not just how to operate the robot interface, but why the system works the way it does, how to interact with it safely and effectively, and critically, how to access and begin interpreting those 120 plus variables the system starts generating from day one.
And training the cows too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Phase 2 also requires implementing clear cow adaptation protocols. These should be guided, research-based procedures to help the cows transition smoothly to the new system, minimizing stress during startup, getting them comfortable finding and using the robot quickly. That's essential for maximizing voluntary visits right from the beginning.
So training the people and training the cows are just as critical as installing the machine itself.
Absolutely essential components of successful integration. The robot is a complex tool, and its success hinges on both the people and the cows effectively interacting with it. Then comes phase 3, optimization achievement.
This is the ongoing part.
This is the ongoing work, yes. This is what really defines a truly successful, thriving robotic farm long-term. It means actively implementing data analysis, using those research-proven factors we've been talking about, consistently tracking key metrics like milkings per cow per day, fetch rates, rumination time, conductivity alerts, activity level.
Using the data continuously.
Right. It's about engaging in continuous improvement, constantly analyzing your farm's performance against established benchmarks, maybe from research or peer groups, and then adjusting your management practices, maybe tweaking the feed, improving bedding, changing sort gate parameters, refining training protocols based on what the data is telling you. It's a commitment to ongoing performance monitoring and refinement.
Yeah.
Never settling.
So successful implementation isn't just a one-time event like flipping a switch.
Not at all.
It's really a journey that requires dedication to upfront planning, rigorous training for people and cows, and then persistent data-driven optimization forever after.
Precisely. It represents a fundamental transformation in your entire farming methodology, not just a simple equipment upgrade.
Which brings us right back around to the bottom line, doesn't it? The core message that just resonates throughout the bovine article and all the extensive university research it draws from, especially those detailed Guelph studies across nearly 200 farms.
It does. And the truth, stated plainly and backed by overwhelming evidence from those studies, is this. Your significant financial investment in robotic milking technology will only yield returns that are commensurate with the competence and dedication of your management.
The robot gives back what your management puts in.
That's a great way to put it. The difference between getting, say, $50,000 a year in extra profit from your robot versus $150,000 or more, it isn't the machine itself. It's entirely dependent on how you manage the entire system surrounding that machine.
And the research consistently identifies that common denominator among the struggling robotic farms, right?
Yes, they invested heavily in the technology, but they failed to simultaneously transform their management approach. They kind of expected the robot to magically fix underlying issues.
Like lameness or poor feed management or labor organization.
Exactly. Issues that fundamentally require better management practices anyway.
Yeah.
The technology can amplify good management, but it rarely solves underlying poor management. It often just highlights it more starkly.
Whereas the successful robotic farms, the ones really hitting those high production and efficiency numbers.
They embrace the complete system transformation that's required. They fundamentally view cow comfort not just as, a nice animal welfare goal, but as a primary production metric. They understand feed management not just as rations, but as sophisticated behavioral economics motivating the cow.
They see facility design as operational strategy.
Right, not just barn layout, but as operational strategy that directly influences cow flow, behavior, and robot visits. And crucially, they treat data interpretation not as some optional extra report to glance at, but as a daily discipline that's absolutely essential for predictive, proactive management.
And it's important to stress the technology itself is proven.
Oh, absolutely. The research from literally thousands of farms globally confirms that robotic milking works. The technology is capable. The potential, as demonstrated by that incredible case study achieving a 28.5% production increase purely through management changes, that potential is real and it's substantial.
The difference is execution.
The difference between realizing that potential and falling short isn't a limitation of the equipment. It's purely a matter of execution, executing based on the research-backed principles of precision management tailored for a voluntary milking system.
And it circles back so nicely to that fascinating research finding about the virtuous cycle.
The farmer mental health link.
Yeah, robotic farmers who manage in a way that supports their own mental well-being, likely through better organization, proactive systems, maybe less stress from constant problems.
They tend to have healthier cows, particularly fewer severely lame cows.
And then that improved cow health reduces the daily grind. Less fetching, fewer emergencies, less stress.
Which alleviates farmer stress, creating this positive feedback loop where better management enables better cow health, which reduces stress, making it easier psychologically and practically to maintain even better management decisions going forward. It feeds itself.
This research, taken together, it really provides a powerful, direct challenge to you, the listener, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Can you honestly assess your own operation right now and say you are actively leveraging even half of those 120 plus daily variables your robot measures per cow?
Are you consistently implementing feed push-up strategies proven to increase milk yield by quantifiable amounts? Are you offering feed variety in the robot, something shown to potentially add 6+ pounds of milk daily?
If the answer is no, or even just, I'm not really sure, then according to the analysis presented in the bovine article, you're likely not experiencing robotic failure.
You're experiencing management failure.
Management failure that the robot, as a piece of precision technology demanding precision input, is simply highlighting for you.
And the article really drives home the financial weight of this failure. That difference in performance between the top farms, the ones with minimal fetch cows, say under 5%.
And the struggling farms with consistently high fetch rates, maybe over 20%, using the exact same technology.
That gap is attributed squarely to management failure. And the article argues that difference in performance, that gap, is worth more than the robot's purchase price every single year in lost revenue and increased operational costs.
Think about that. The annual cost of suboptimal management could exceed the capital cost of the robot itself. That puts the magnitude of the opportunity or the cost of inaction into incredibly stark perspective. The potential profit just waiting to be unlocked through optimized management based on established research is immense.
Okay, so based on everything we've unpacked in this deep dive, pulling from the bovine article and all the supporting university research, what are the most critical, actionable insights? What steps can you, the listener, take right now to start shifting from just surviving to actually thriving with your robots?
Well, the key takeaways highlighted in the article offer a pretty clear roadmap. First, and maybe foremost, make lameness crisis resolution your absolute top priority.
Job number one.
Job number one. Implement that weekly mobility scoring using a standardized protocol. Proactive detection is everything. Seriously consider sandbedding if you're not using it. The research shows immediate production and comfort gains. Eliminating that lameness burden directly reduces fetching, improves system throughput, and that potential $200, $300 annual gain per lame cow is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, tackle lameness head on. What's second?
Second, obsess over your feed strategy. Commit to at least 5, maybe more, daily feed push-ups to keep fresh feed consistently available at the bunk. Ensure you have adequate bunk space. Research often suggests around 24 inches per cow. These simple acts leverage that behavioral economics principle to drive those quantifiable yield improvements we talked about, potentially adding significant revenue. And definitely consider offering feed variety in the robot based on that Minnesota study.
Got it. Lameness feed.
Third, activate your data goldmine. Stop letting those 120 plus variables your robot collects every day just sit there unused. Leverage this incredible data stream for proactive health detection, for monitoring individual cow performance, for tracking reproductive status. Shift your mindset and your daily routines from reacting to problems after they become visible to using the data predictively to prevent costly issues days in advance. Understand what your key data metrics are telling you and use them to inform your management decisions every single day.
Use the intel you already have.
Fourth, fundamentally transform your management philosophy. Let go of that ingrained, conventional, twice-a-day milking mindset that might be holding you back. Truly embrace the biological and production potential of voluntary higher milking frequency, aiming for that 2.4 to 3.0 times daily range. As the University of Guelph research powerfully demonstrated with that case study, this philosophical shift towards enabling voluntary visits, supporting them through comfort and motivation, is absolutely key to unlocking those dramatic production increases, often without needing any new hardware.
Change the mindset, enable the cow. And finally,
demand performance accountability from your management system, starting with yourself. Recognize that consistently high fetch rates, especially those creeping over 15 or 20%, are almost certainly not a robot problem. They are a clear indicator pointing towards management failures in other areas, likely lameness control, maybe feed motivation, perhaps cow comfort issues, or facility flow bottlenecks. Understand the significant financial implications of this management gap compared to the top performers using the same tech. Own the fetch list as a management metric.
Okay. Lameness, feed, data, philosophy, accountability. That's a solid list. So the concrete next step suggested by the article is conduct an assessment.
Exactly. Conduct a comprehensive management assessment on your own farm. Use the research-proven factors identified by those extensive University of Guelph studies as your benchmark, your checklist. Objectively, honestly evaluate your current housing systems, your nutritional strategies and feed delivery protocols, your current data utilization practices, and your overall management philosophy and routines against these documented success factors from thriving robotic dairies.
And the gap you find.
The gap you identify between your current practices and the benchmark set by research on successful robotic farms, that gap represents your single most significant untapped profit potential. It's right there, waiting for you to address it.
The opportunity is clearly defined, isn't it? It's backed by extensive data, by rigorous university research. The real revolution in robotic milking, it seems, isn't necessarily coming from the next model upgrade of the robot itself.
Nope. It's in recognizing, finally and fully, that this precision technology demands equally precise management to deliver on its potential.
The data is compelling, the research is extensive, and the opportunity to significantly improve your farm's performance, your cow health, your own workload, and your profitability, likely with the technology you already own, is massive.
It really is.
The only question remaining then is whether you'll seize it. What one management change, based on everything we've discussed today from the bovine analysis, will you commit to exploring or maybe even implementing on your farm this week?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the bovine article on optimizing dairy robotics.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Bovine Podcast. Remember, the revolution isn't in the robots. It's in recognizing that your $1 million investment will only return what your management allows it to return. If today's insights challenged your thinking about robotic milking management, that's exactly what we're here for. The bovine doesn't shy away from uncomfortable truths, because we know that's where real progress happens. Your next step? Conduct that comprehensive management assessment we discussed. Evaluate your housing systems, nutritional strategies, and data utilization against the research-proven success factors. The difference between where you are and where you should be represents your untapped profit potential. For more bold, evidence-based insights that challenge conventional dairy wisdom, visit us at www.thebovine.com. Subscribe to our newsletter and join the conversation with progressive dairy professionals who refuse to accept "that's how we've always done it" as an answer. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, keep questioning assumptions, and keep building a more profitable dairy operation. This has been the Bovine Podcast, and we look forward to seeing you for our next episode.